if this is something you want to do, hunting, being in the outdoors and active, if that's what you want to do, you'll find a way to do it. If you don't, you'll find an excuse. It's kind of a pain when I go to the airport. But yeah, or when I travel, because I have like a whole suitcase full of legs. But they felt very similar to what I was like to run with when I had meat legs. I lost my legs to a disease called Charcot-Marie Tooth, which is a progressive genetic disorder. Went through suicidal thoughts and basically some depression, but really the whole motivation of getting out and hunting just kind of kept me going. And so I let that out, and that bull just ripped right back at me. And I'll tell you what, that whole mindset of my feet and prosthetics and how far we were from the vehicles and the road and whatnot, just like went completely out the window. I just started hiking, and I just looked down, and my prosthetics were like bent in half, and they're carbon fiber. And so something's got to give. Like I said, a normal guy, instead of some people put on contacts in the morning, I just throw on my legs. So this is Sidney Smith, and you're listening to Living Country in the City, episode 23.
Y'all ready for your dose of flyover state spirit? Straight from the concrete jungle? Well, put down your latte and pull on your boots. It's time for Living Country in the City.
Hey y'all, thank you for joining me for episode 23 of Living Country in the City. Living Country in the City is brought to you by Bowhunter Brotherhood. There's a thread that connects all men and women who love hunting and the outdoors, and that's what Bowhunter Brotherhood represents. Check out the Bowhunter Brotherhood website and get 10% off all purchases from the Bowhunter Brotherhood store by visiting our partners page at livingcountryinthecity.com/partners. Now, before I get started, a quick reminder about my 2,000 follower giveaway. I mean, it's no Mountain Ops Hunt with Corey Jacobson, but I'm giving away over $600 in prizes from companies that I partner with and support. Some of the prizes include gear from Mountain Ops, Bowhunter Brotherhood, a year's access to Elk 101's University of Elk Hunting online course, a signed and mounted canvas elk print from Lydia Smith Art. It's gorgeous. A year's membership to Huntin' Fool, calls from Rocky Mountain Huntin' Calls, and so much more. It's super easy to enter. Just head on over to livingcountryinthecity.com/2K, the number 2 and the letter K, and that'll give you all the details you need to enter. It's really simple to do. Now, back when I released episode 16 with Zach Griffith, I had someone reach out to me on Instagram, really just with some kind words about the podcast and that episode. And, so I naturally checked out his profile, and I immediately knew that I had to get him on the podcast. Now, living in the city, I encounter a lot of challenges when it comes to living an outdoor lifestyle, and it's really easy to make up excuses as to why I can't do something. And, I know a lot of y'all feel the same way. Now, this guy who reached out to me, Sidney Smith, is... well, there's no other way to put it, just a stone cold badass. And he is the perfect person to talk about destroying excuses and overcoming obstacles. But I'll let him to be the one to explain why. Sidney, thank you so much. I really appreciate you hopping on the podcast with me.
Thank you. It's glad to be here. It's excited. Finally got to this day.
So I always like to start out, as you know, kind of just with an introduction about yourself. Maybe your history with hunting and the outdoors, and then, kind of what you got going on now.
Yeah, well, I grew up in a family of hunting. Back in the day when it was camo wasn't really a thing. We wore last year's pair of Nikes or Air Jordans and a pair of jeans, and we slept in a bed of a truck. I admit it, I was one of those guys that we would drive around in a truck, or sometimes we'd take the horses, do that, and went hunting that way. I'm from Utah. Grew up in Provo. Most of my family's from southern Utah. Hunted a lot down there. We hunted mule deer. Elk wasn't really big when I was younger, as it is now. But then we started putting in for the trophy units, and then got into the spike hunting, and now kind of hunted, as much as I can and anywhere I can, put in any states I can to get to that addiction. But it's kind of my hunting background. I love the big game, upland game, but I do live for elk hunting and deer hunting. My second passion for the outdoors is ice fishing. That is, I don't know why, it is because it's so cold, but partially because my feet don't get cold, and that's because I am a double amputee. I am missing both my legs below the knee, and just kind of doing all these outdoor stuff as best as I can. I love to do triathlons, particularly training in for the Ironman. Have a wife and kids, three kids and one on the way.
Well, congratulations, boy or a girl.
The new one is going to be a girl, so that's 3 girls. So I lucked out with a boy, which was the first one, and which made the stress of all the other 3 girls not as bad. But to come to find out, I love the girls too. They're just as sweet.
So are they gonna grow up to be little hunting partners as well as the boy, or what are their feelings on it?
No, the second one, no. Like, I took her coyote hunting and she was just terrified. She thought she was going to get eaten. And somebody at school told her that coyotes like pink and that's her favorite color. And yeah, I know, it's totally random. It bothered her for days. Like, she came and slept in our room, and it's like she hated it. So she's kind of a girly girl. She's into dancing and Barbies, but my other girl, she loves outdoors. She's just game for anything. So,
well, there you go. Start. When can you start putting in for points for them?
I know, as soon as I can. I tell you what, because Utah does pretty good as far as giving opportunities for youth to draw certain tags. So
that's one thing that's super exciting. Like, my folks were never opposed to hunting, but it just wasn't really a part of our life. I grew up in a suburb in Southern California. I had an awesome time. We'd go out and, we'd go camping and fishing, but it just, it wasn't really a big thing in my family. And I look back and I'm like, oh man, this stuff, where would I be now if I had been able to do that? And I don't regret a thing about my childhood, but, except for maybe I wish my dad had known to put in for points for me here in California, because a nice Thule elk count would be pretty sick. But
I bet those things look awesome. No, I went on a mission for 2 years, and I thought my dad put me in for 2 years. So I am like 2 years behind on points, and now I blame him if I don't draw anything.
I should be at max points now.
I know.
So as of course you mentioned, you are a double amputee, and I can imagine being in the outdoors, doing these triathlons, you face a variety of challenges that necessarily myself or someone else may or may not face getting into the outdoors. What would you say? What would you say is your biggest challenge you face when you're in the outdoors as an amputee?
It's one of those things in any challenge, not just physically, but in any aspect, whether it be, things at home or mental or, or other physical things, that if you make a challenge as your focus to be your strength, then pretty soon that challenge will become your strength. And so for me, obviously, being a double amputee in the knees or below the knees, walking, hiking, getting out there was tough. Confidence was probably the big thing, just because, it took time to get used to prosthetics. It was very painful. The whole, I've only been an amputee for almost this November, or I'll be a double amputee for 2 years. And so there's a lot to being, with limb loss, as far as phantom pain. The shape of your limb will change, fluctuates based on, almost what your diet is like, how much you're drinking, how hot it is, what you're sweating. And so with all those complications, it's made, the outdoors a challenge. And to me, I've always looked at challenges as an opportunity to make myself better. and it's just been a huge motivation to life, is to take the challenge on. And then, before you know it, you get better at things, and your confidence goes up, and you're on to the next challenge.
Well, I have to say, I had a buddy ask me, hey, what are you up to tonight? I'm like, oh, I'm recording a podcast. He's like, oh, who's the guest? And I showed him your Instagram, and I kind of, I was like, oh, he's a double amputee, but he's a hunter and a triathlete. And my buddy's like, oh, so I show him your Instagram, and he's like, dang, that guy really gets around more than I do.
Yeah, it does crack me up when I go hunting and I get guys or triathlons or running, and I get people, able-bodied people, that are like, oh man, I can never do that. I'm like, don't say that. Don't say that. You can do that.
Of all people to say that to.
Yeah.
Let me hear your excuses. I want to hear what your excuses are for not going hunting, and then let me shut them down real quick.
Oh yeah, no, it's funny. I've had someone say, like, oh, I sprained an ankle, or I'm overweight, I'm out of shape. That's my favorite one, because it's like, dude, you got to start somewhere. You don't work out, it's one thing. Or I hear people say they don't have time, and I know they have time, because I could list of all the volunteer stuff I do and things I do outside of work, which I guess we'll talk a little bit later on, but you just got to learn to make time. So
that's one thing. It's I find myself falling into that trap of thinking I don't have enough time for stuff, and recently I've gotten a lot better at cutting out those. I'll still admit I spend entirely too much time playing Candy Crush on my phone, but for the most part, I've managed to cut out a lot of those little distractions that amount to big chunks of time, and I've schooled myself into getting to bed and waking up early to just get things done. And it's when you, like you said, when you stop focusing on those excuses and those challenges and figure out a way to turn those into a strength, it's really amazing. I've talked with people before, and I've told them I don't really have a place to go shoot my bow. I just don't. The nearest range is the next city over, and which in Los Angeles is really not that far of a drive compared to some places, but and I was getting frustrated, and that was for me that was a pretty big challenge. And now it's one of those things to where I've schooled myself. I go to bed early, I get rested, I wake up at 4 a.m. I get out there, and because I've started doing this, it's really I've schooled myself to do this in other areas of my life too, and I've really been able to rein in on all these distractions and stuff like that. And it's really, like you said, it's turned what could be a challenge that I could just focus on and use an excuse, and it's turned that into a strength. And I get to go out, I get to shoot my bow, I get to be in nature, I get to, and it's really, I'm trying to think of the word right now, but it's really bothering me that I can't think of this word, that it's set me straight basically, but I cannot think of the word I'm trying to use right now.
No, I get what you're saying, and I agree. I mean, if this is something you want to do, hunting, being outdoors and active, if that's what you want to do, you'll find a way to do it. If you don't, you'll find an excuse. And, I'll admit I've had some bad days where I don't really want to go to the gym or work out, or, get up an extra hour early to get on the mountain or something like that. But bottom line, if it's not something you don't want to do, you'll make up some excuses, and you just got to constantly make yourself stronger than your excuses.
So now, do you have like a specialized prosthetic you use when you're out on the mountain? Is it kind of the same one you use for your day to day?
No, yeah, I have 3 sets of legs. So
not everyone can say that.
Yeah, no, it's kind of a pain when I go to the airport. But Yeah, or when I travel, because I have like a whole suitcase full of legs. But
That just in the wrong context.
yeah,
That could sound a little odd. But anyway, continue.
no. I um, I got a special sponsorship with the company called Amputee Blade Runners, and I just had a pair of walking legs, and they did pretty good. Like I, hiked a little bit around, um, you know, to and from work. I couldn't do much, and so when I got in touch with them, they got me a set of running legs, which are those big, huge blades, carbon fiber for running, and they work great. They felt very similar to what I was like to run with when I had meat legs, except that, kind of like Oscar Pistorius. I don't know if trying to explain it the best I can, but I'm not going to end up killing my wife, so you don't have to plan that.
Yeah, there you go.
So, and then I got a pair of biking legs that clip right into my pedals. I can go mountain biking or road biking's my thing right now. And then these legs are walking legs, but they kind of have an active twist to them. So I can jog, I can play basketball in them, get around the house, hike. They have just enough spring that does a lot, but not too much that they can, take, where I can fall easily.
Okay. And you mentioned swimming. Do you use prosthetics with that or no?
No. I mean, they make some for people that may want to do some underwater scuba diving, but for triathlons and Ironmans, they have rules where you can't, for adaptive athletes, you can't have prosthetics for swimming. So I've had to retrain myself. I had to get a coach. I swam in high school and a little bit in college, so I had to retrain myself how to swim without kicking, and so it's just kind of a different approach to swimming.
It's a lot more upper body, I imagine.
Yep, upper body. I had to change the way my body was balanced in the water to be more parallel, and I had to overcompensate by leaning forward so that way I can cruise through the water faster.
Interesting. Okay. So tell us maybe about some recent hunts, some kind of challenges in the outdoors that you've encountered and that you've been able to kind of felt like you, as you said, you've turned into a strength, if you will.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I have a couple I maybe want to, that talk about, and I guess where to start maybe is maybe the beginning, I mean, first of all, just to maybe for the listeners to know, I lost my legs to a disease called Charcot-Marie tooth, which is a progressive genetic disorder that basically I was born with a normal body, healthy body when I was a kid. I didn't have any deformities or anything like that. And then as I got older, in my feet, they started to crumble. But again, grew up in a family that loved to hunt, still try to get around. I had those big old honking braces, like Forrest Gump. In fact, in school, that's what it was right when the movie came out. And so everyone said, "Run, Sidney, run." It got old fast. In fact, they still say it with the prosthetics, so it's like whatever. But anyways, I remember a few hunts where, like I didn't have it in me. I had all kinds of arthritis problems, and I remember there was a couple times where I could get to the next ridge if I really wanted to, but the pain was just, awful, so bad. This is before amputation. So luckily I had a brother that helped me out during that hunt. It was during a deer hunt. But I guess where with prosthetics and prosthetics now have basically allowed me to live my life with less pain, which is a lot versus what it was before. And I know, there's people out there that struggle with pain and they try their best to manage it. But for me, it was like a whole beginning of life. And I basically took this as a second chance to move forward. And it wasn't easy, like getting to the point where I am now, like I said, I had bad days, but I tried really hard not to let my bad days turn into a bad week and a bad month. Um, and there were some complications with my feet during that process. I had some infections, and I had to reamputate one of them. I went through suicidal thoughts and basically some depression, but really the whole motivation of getting out and hunting just kind of kept me going, and had a goal. When I was in the hospital, they were playing the Ironman competition, and I was watching that. But anyways, to get back to your question, the most recent hunt that was probably my big hunt that I did with that was my first as a double amputee, was this elk hunt that I went on. It was here in Utah. It was over the counter tag, and what's nice about Utah, and I don't think they do this in all states, but they do in some states, but they have a disabled hunt that they do at a certain time. And they kind of combine it with the youth tag. And it's usually the last 2 weeks in September, which in Utah is sometimes the peak of the rut for the elk.
Yeah.
Which is, amazing. Like, because before we were hunting in mid-October, early October, and we weren't getting anything. And to have that opportunity, it's amazing. It's almost worth cutting your legs off for. That's what I tell.
Gosh.
but yeah, I was on doing the dedicated deer hunt at the time with my bow, and it was just about to end the season. And the second to the last day, I saw just a monster 5x6. For an open bow unit, it's not very often. So I decided I'm going to do this hunt. Picked up an over-counter tag, chased him for like a week, couldn't get to him. And then I ran into some buddies of mine, Mark Stewart and Spencer Merrill, and with a company called Extreme Hunter. And they decided, hey, we know some spots, why don't we go and check out? And sure enough, we did a couple hunts. And one day they were just bugling. I mean, the rut turned right on. The terrain was very rocky. And so the terrain was, so hard for prosthetics. I had a hard time feeling my center of gravity. So I use trekking poles and do everything I can that way. And I don't know how far, maybe a couple miles into it, I was starting to get a little bit worried about hiking with these guys, but I didn't want to sound like a baby, didn't want to sound like a pansy and be like, "No, guys, I can't do this." And they're like, "Oh, let's go one more ridge." And finally we got to this peak, and I let out a bugle. And before we had one of those Primos, bugles that you get at Walmart, and it wasn't really doing well. And I was really into the bugle tube from Phelps Game Calls. Just carried the sound really well, and I've been practicing a lot. And so I let that out, and that bull just ripped right back at me. And I'll tell you what, that whole mindset of my feet and prosthetics and how far we were from the vehicles and the road and whatnot, just like went completely out the window. So we chased that bull, and we got to the point where he just started coming in hot and heavy, snorting and everything. And he got about 33 yards from us, and we popped him, and it was awesome. He died. He expired right in front of us. We videotaped it, and it was one of the coolest experiences because, and first of all, those animals are huge.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got that. And some people complain because, at this point, once you kill a big bull elk in the middle of nowhere, then the work starts. But I was living in it. I was, all about, cutting them up, quartering them up, and boning them out and throwing them on the pack. And, again, it was tough, just because of the terrain and hiking up and down. But once we got his, I put the rack on my backpack, and then put a quarter in. And what's funny, I didn't realize this, but my prosthetic, the carbon fiber spring that's in them is based on my weight.
Oh.
And I didn't really think about it at the time because it's like you're just in the heat of the moment, like, holy crap, I just killed this freaking elk and I'm stoked and it's dark and I don't care and it's cold and it's snowing, but whatever. But anyways, we just started hiking and I just looked down and my prosthetics were like bent in half and they're carbon fiber. And so something's got to give. But luckily, they didn't break, and I was worried that I ruined them or something like that. So I called the designer that made the ankle, and he said I would have been fine. Now he said if I would have packed another 15, 20 pounds, they could have snapped. But
and that's not exactly something you can fix with a zip tie and some duct tape necessarily in the backwoods.
No, there's no super glue. There's no redneck way of fixing that. So yeah, that is kind of something that's been like a nightmare. I'll wake up in the middle of the night and I'll be dreaming that, I'm out hiking by myself, checking a trail cam or something like that, and I just hear that carbon fiber snap, and I pretty much would have to crawl to get back home. But yeah.
So you mentioned you guys videoed it. Do you have that up posted anywhere?
Yeah. So what's awesome about this whole experience, it's kind of taken off. My two friends, Mark and Spencer, started a business called Extreme Hunter, and we use that video. It's on our website, extremehunter.net, and also you can check the link on my Instagram tag, which is try_no-feet. And you can find the link on that. It's going to be on our Extreme Hunter YouTube page. We've done that. We've done some ice fishing ones. We got an elk bear hunt that we filmed. Unfortunately, I had to work, so I couldn't make it to that one. But it's just been awesome to hunt and film. I know there's a lot of naysayers out there, but to be honest, this sounds stupid and very proud, but I watch my hunt all the time, and not just because I feel like, oh my gosh, I feel like, Superman, but just to relive that whole experience is fun. And so, there's the downside to it. I tried to self-film my turkey hunt, and it turned into a disaster. Like I missed out on so many birds because I tried to move the camera, and those damn birds, like they have great eyesight. And so I was unsuccessful this year because I thought it'd be cool to film a freaking turkey hunt. It's not that easy.
Well, I mean, yeah, it definitely adds complexity to an already very complex, I don't know, sport activity, whatever you want to call it. But it does really provide such a reward. Like, as you said, you get, one of the coolest experiences of your life, and you get a chance to go back and relive that through more than just maybe one or two photos, but being able to see that hit the elk or whatever it may be, it's got to bring back just a flood of feelings and memories. And, but then there's also the benefit of you get to share that with other people. And I've said, on a couple of the other podcasts, when I'm getting frustrated, when I'm like, how am I sitting there thinking like, how am I going to learn all this stuff? Why am I even bothering? It's like, I know only 10% of people are successful each year on elk hunts. So, what's the point of learning all this stuff if I'm probably not going to get one anyway? Or, all this stuff you tell yourself when you're new to this. And videos like that, I mean, I can't say enough of all these guys, Brett Russell, the guys at Born and Raised Outdoors, just everything from the Full Draw Film Tour, Meat Eater. I constantly have these on, and every time I start to get overwhelmed or tired or frustrated, I'll watch something like this, and I'm like, there's nothing I can't do, like I'm super pumped again, and I'm like, I can handle this. And that's something, Yeah, you may be kind of recording for yourself, but by putting it out there, you are encouraging so many more people than you probably even realize.
Oh, absolutely. We ended up submitting the video to our local channel, and they have their own TV show called Wild Air, which it's going to be taken off with some awesome footage they got going on. But like, I mean, it's not a big town, but I got a lot of people that you know approached me like, "Holy cow, I just saw your hunt on TV," or someone on Facebook said they saw the same thing. But what's really cool is when, and like I said, I enjoyed it for myself, but I thought it was cool when it inspired somebody else. Like, for example, there's a gentleman that out in Salt Lake County, which it's about 3 hours from here. And he's also a big hunter, but he's a double amputee, and he's missing his arms and actually part of his feet too. But he's missing his arms. He got electrocuted, and he's a big time hunter. He's got a special arm that allows him to pull the trigger, and he kind of stopped hunting. There was some circumstances with where he was hunting. He wouldn't allow him to hunt there, so he kind of lost his motivation. And he saw his video, called me up, got in touch with me, and we're going hunting this fall together. So one guy's missing his arms, one guy's missing his legs. So together we're one person.
There you go. I actually, have you gotten a chance to listen to the podcast I did? I want to say it must be like, one? Yeah, Operation Pay It Forward.
Yeah, I did. That was a really awesome one.
I really love those guys. They're great guys. But yeah, I almost always think about that story they tell in that episode where, they've got, I think he was like a triple amputee. And he'd sit there and he'd hold his bow and he'd pull it back with his teeth. And, they were just talking about how excited he was to be on that hunt. And they opened that car door and he like threw himself out and tumbled out of the car, and they were all like, "What just happened?"
I could see that.
But yeah, it's awesome. It's so encouraging to see stuff like that, and people not letting these challenges, these disabilities, whatever you want to call them, stop them from doing what they love. And hunting is not an easy thing when no. You have 4 fully functional limbs, and it's far from an easy thing then. And so adding any extra challenges is just it definitely ups the ante a bit. No, but
it does it. I love that podcast, by the way. I mean, I jumped on and followed those guys, and I think it's cool. And really, I like that they do stuff like that, and that's kind of, it's really neat. Makes you feel good. I'm excited to take this guy out and to do that. And what I tried to explain to him too, I mean, hunting as a disabled person is hard. If you're, the fact that you want to go is a big step, but those elk, just so you know, these elk, they don't care if you're disabled or not. They will run away and are just as elusive as if you had an able body. So they don't have any sympathy. You don't get any sympathy points for doing that. They don't sacrifice that. But I think my experience with Extreme Hunter and having that opportunity. I mean, those guys were great, and it just kind of made me want to pay it forward. And so I've teamed up with them to maybe find opportunities, not just with soldiers. I mean, although those guys are, we would love to help them too, but anybody really that has a disability, we've kind of wanted to work with hunting partners throughout the world, really, that we've started with connections in New Zealand and throughout the United States, that we're just kind of building yellow pages or directory for hunters to connect, and then what they can do to also pay it forward to some of these disabled people.
That's really exciting. So is that something you guys have up on Extreme Hunter right now, or is that something that's still kind of in progress?
Yeah, we're still in progress. As far as that, we've just started things, and it's taken off as far as we're getting our name out there, what we do, what we're about, and it should be shortly before we're going forward through that. I mean, we're hunters first, and so this whole business side of things is something we're learning as we get along and so forth. But yeah, like I said, I'm just excited to give someone an opportunity that I was given, and to have that motivation to get out there and hunt. It's just a huge, self-confidence that you can do that and do those things, even though they're hard. Like you said, hunting is very hard, especially freaking elk. So
a bunch of idiot animals walking up the dang side of mountains.
Yeah.
And we're the even bigger idiots trying to chase them.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Mountain carp is what I've heard some people call them.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I've heard that. On that note, let's take a moment to hear a quick word from one of my partners. Hey y'all, as hunters, we are constantly on the move. Whether it's a scouting trip, heading to the range, training for the hunt, or searching for sheds, providing the fuel to sustain this high-intensity lifestyle requires top-quality food options, and you shouldn't have to compromise the quality of your nutrition when you're on the go. Rugged Meats is here to provide superior nutrition anywhere or anytime, no matter what the hunt is throwing at you. Their snack sticks are made from 100% free-range, wild-caught, forest-raised boar, and all products are guaranteed to be free of any added nitrates, MSG, and gluten. Plus, they come in several different flavors and options, so you can find the best way to power your pursuit. Check out the Rugged Meats website and get 10% off all purchases from Rugged Meats by visiting our partners page at livingcountryinthecity.com/partners. So what's your dream hunt, Sidney? Like, what is, if anywhere in the world, anywhere in the U.S., any animal, any weapon, what would your dream hunt be?
A lot of people are like, "Oh, wouldn't you want to go kill a lion?" Or, I'm like, "Nah, not really." Or a Cape buffalo was, kind of up there. A bison, I've been putting in for bison a lot, or a Dall sheep, or a grizzly bear. All those things come to mind. But people might think this is stupid, but I would love to hunt the Henry Mountains. Or I lived down in Lake Powell before I lived in Vernal, and the Henry Mountains are honestly Disneyland to mule deer. And to have an opportunity to go after a 200 inch plus deer would be amazing. And it's funny because I hunt deer every year, and sometimes I'll get 2 tags. So, to say my dream hunt would hunt deer again, it sounds funny, but no, those Henry Mountains, I mean, it's kind of ruined me for mule deer, because I'll see a nice 160, 170, 180 buck on a general season. I'm like, he's okay. But really, I mean, that's a monster buck. But you go down there and they look like they have branches of trees growing out of their heads. So.
Oh man. Yeah, no, I love asking this question just because it was same thing. It gives me inspiration. It gives me hunts to think about, and the answers are always so different. I get, I think I've only ever once gotten someone that wanted to go, like their dream hunt was hunting like an exotic or, out of the country animal. But there's no weird answer to me, because if it's doing what you love, you may hunt deer every year, but there's a reason, you love hunting deer. So why wouldn't you want to go get a monster buck,
And I think it's in my blood. Like, we were talking earlier about that debate on Muley Freak and Rich Outdoors about the mule deer versus elk. And I mean, this bull that I had killed, it was bugling right there in my face. And I mean, don't get me wrong, like I may have peed my pants a little bit, may have peed a little bit. And I still get goosebumps thinking about it. But whenever I see a mule deer, like everything goes slow motion, and I can't help it. I think the mule deer picked me versus I picked the mule deer. I don't know what it is. So it's been a dream of mine to have a nice shoulder mount in my, something that I've accomplished, worked on my own, preferably in velvet, but hardhorn, I'll take that too. So.
Okay. Yeah, I was actually just having a discussion with someone, with one of my coworkers. He's the one I interviewed in episode 2, and we were sitting there talking today, and we were talking about different types of mounts, and I came up and I'm like, I don't know what I'd want to do, because we were talking about how many coolers I'd need to pack out, and sizes and stuff like that, and just to be prepared. And he's like, well, if you want to. It depends on how you want to mount it, if you want to bring it home the whole head. And we were talking about that, and I'm like, if I got anything of any reasonable size for my first elk, it would definitely be, a whole head mount at least. But then I'm like, I have a 450 square foot apartment. I also have a lot of crap in this apartment. I mount this thing, that's going to take up half of my living room. It will basically have to be mounted, 3 feet off the floor to have room for the rack and be far enough out. I'm like, maybe I can, put it in this corner though. So the second anybody walks in my apartment, it's like looking straight at them. It's the first thing they see when they walk in. But
hey, that's a good problem to have. That's a good problem to have.
Well, hopefully it is a decision I will have to make come the end of September, but we'll see, man. It's all I can think about these days. It's I've got the fever.
It's addicting and it's expensive. Both addicting and expensive fever. But you'll get there, man. I mean, this goes out to anybody that may be disabled, but I mean that I may not be the best. I know for a fact I'm not the best hunter by any means. But I do think that the consistency of just getting out there, even if you hike for a little bit, or even if you go out there and you don't see shit, or you're basically getting better at it. More chances, more opportunities you have on the mountain, and getting out there and glassing, or even I feel like listening to podcasts, researching, reading, Google Earth, all that stuff. You're going to get better at hunting, and before you know it, you're going to be more successful.
It's funny. I feel like a lot of the stuff I do, like I mean, you want to talk about hunting podcasts? I'm hopping into a rather saturated market here, but it's there's piles of hunting podcasts, and whatever you want to learn about, you can dial in and download, and I mean, of course, the best one is the one you're on now. I'm absolutely sure.
Hell yeah.
No, I mean, there's just so many out there, and I love just whenever I'm doing anything, like I'm short of going and specifically watching like a hunting video or film, I really don't watch much TV anymore, because I've constantly got these podcasts playing. I couldn't even tell you the last time I listened to like music in the car or on a drive somewhere, because it's just these podcasts going and going and going. And I've realized it's kind of funny, even when I'm not like super focused and listening, I'm still picking up a lot of this stuff. And because I'll be talking with someone, and a topic will come up, and I'll know they'll have a question, I'll know the answer, and I'm like, where did that come from? And I'm like, oh wait, I think that was, from it's just kind of floating around in the back of my mind. And it's amazing what you can pick up when you're just immersing yourself in a subject, and it's like learning a language.
There's a lot that I've learned from podcasts. I mean, I listen to them mostly when I train, because endurance training for the Ironman is, I mean, you're constantly, some bike rides are 4, 5, 6 hours. And so I download them, put them on my headphones, or like I said, I have a little waterproof iPod for swimming. And but like I picked up things like that I didn't even realize that I thought I knew, or new stuff. One of them was Corey Jacobson that I actually used on this last elk hunt. He had some advice that I've never tried as far as interrupting a bugling elk to get them in.
Yeah.
Versus, just calling them in on a cow or something like that. But basically sneak up on them, cow call, they bugle, and then you interrupt them. And don't know 100% for sure if that was the reason why he came up all hot, but it definitely helped.
Yeah, I was just out in Utah for the Black Ovis, Crispy boots. Corey Jacobson was out. I was just out in Salt Lake a few weeks back, and he gave a presentation, and he was talking about that's his go-to strategy for bugling, and it's one of those things. It makes absolute sense. It's super basic, but why it works? I mean, it's like, what happens if you walk into a bar and some guy's trying to hit on this girl, and you just say, look him right in the face and say, back the F off, she's mine.
Yeah.
He's gonna come up to you, and he's gonna want to pick a fight. I mean, it's basically what you're doing with the elk. You're just vocally slapping him across the face and calling him a little what.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it makes absolute perfect sense to me why that would work, but I love it. I've got an episode with Corey coming out in I don't know, whenever I can get it edited, because I'm slow, but yeah, we talked a little bit about that, and he is just a great person to, when you need a complex situation or like topic distilled down into its most basic form, to help you understand it. I honestly can't think of a better person. Anytime he explains something, or I read something on elk101.com, I'm like, oh, now it's, and then all the other places I've tried to learn it from kind of piece together. But
yeah, no, he's good. I had a chance to hear him at the World's Championship, and I've never heard him call in person, and yeah, it's just absolutely amazing. So,
oh, you were out at the ISE show?
Yeah.
Yeah, we were there together and never knew it.
There we go. I could have walked by. We could have. Yeah, never knew it.
I'm really tempted to fly back out mid-July, because the Total Archery Challenge is going on at Snowbird, and then I know Cam Haynes is doing a run, and Corey's going to be out there, and and all the Mountain Ops guys are going to be out there, and I'm just sitting there, and I'm like, how many times do I have to fly to Utah in a 6-month period before it just starts getting ridiculous?
Hey, just spend an extra day and look for a house. I mean, apartment. That's all you got to do. Hey, if you come out there, I'll be there.
Oh man, you're just making this decision a lot harder now. I'm gonna have to. I don't know. The decision was probably made when I first saw the poster, if we're being completely honest. But now I just need to find an excuse to get those couple extra vacation days.
Yeah, good.
But so if people wanted to find you online, you mentioned your Instagram is try_no-feet, which I love the little double entendre you got going on there. I'm assuming that was intentional, or maybe not.
Yeah. Definitely. If you try, some people are like, well, why would I want to try that? I'm like, well, you could look at it that way. Try is short for triathlons.
Yeah. That gave me a little laugh. I was very happy with that one. And then we got the Extreme Hunter. Where can we find that online again?
They're extremehunter.net or extreme.hunter on Instagram. And then you'll see a link to our YouTube stuff, and we'll get that taken off too. Yeah, I'm just a normal guy. Find me on Facebook, Sidney Smith. Nothing. I mean, obviously, if you want to look through pictures, he's the guy that's missing legs. But like I said, a normal guy. Instead of some people put on contacts in the morning, I just throw on my legs. So.
Well, like I said, I do enjoy going through your photos and seeing that. Like I said, it makes me want to work that much harder. We'll make sure to link to all those pages on the show notes page, which will be livingcountryinthecity.com/23 for episode 23. So, before we close it out, as you've probably heard in these episodes, I always like to end it maybe with a little bit of advice or encouragement for a new hunter or somebody like myself from the city who feels intimidated by getting into hunting, feels that it may be a little too much for them. Just any advice or any encouragement you might have for that person.
Definitely. One thing I like about the hunting industry is the people. If you go out there and you're on the mountain, you see somebody, and generally they're pretty warm, unless you're in their spot, and then that's something different. But don't be afraid to ask another hunter. I'm sure there's trolls and out there that are just like in anything, but don't be afraid to ask questions as a new guy. Do your research, try something new. Don't go with your gut instinct. But really, where a lot of people, I think, lose hunting is because it's hard that they give up. And you got to look at it this way. You got to make the experience. For me, I make the experience for myself. I probably make it for my kids, for my dad, my brothers. We make it as an experience to do that. Now sometimes people do that solo. I get that. But it's all about the experience. And sometimes, going and chasing this big mule deer, big elk, or whatever you're hunting, and you're not successful, and you get all down about yourself, I think those big elk and those big deer can get in the way of a good hunt. And so you just got to look at it. You're out in experience. You're enjoying, the beautiful nature that God's given us, His creations, and you're just being there is a huge accomplishment. You need to give yourself that kind of confidence. And you're not, if you kill something, a 200-inch mule deer on your first deer hunt, I have to say you're one lucky son of a gun, but eventually you'll get success. You keep pushing, you keep researching, you keep doing out there, you'll get success. And if you don't get it, that's okay. You get it the next year. I guarantee you every excellent, amazing hunter out there and has had tag soup. And so it happens, and that's just how it is. And we all have lives. I have work. Went through school, and there's been some hunts where I only hunted one day. There's some hunts where I didn't even get to go, either financial reasons or got sick or something on those lines. So just keep trucking, keep hammering, keep getting out there and push forward, and you'll get the success eventually.
Well, Sidney, thank you so much for taking the time out of your evening to come join me on the show. Really appreciate having you on. Everybody, go stop by Sidney's socials, give him a wave, say hi, and thanks again for hopping on the podcast today.
Hey, Sam, thank you. It's been a pleasure, and really enjoy your show, and look forward to seeing you taking off on it even more and more.
All right, y'all, that'll do it for episode 23. Make sure you check out the show notes page at livingcountryinthecity.com/23. I've got links to all the stuff I talked about with Sidney in the episode. And now I really appreciate all y'all who are tuning in for each and every one of these episodes. Please make sure that you subscribe so you don't miss a single one. It's really easy to do. Just search for Living Country in the City on iTunes, Stitcher, Podbean, or whatever your favorite podcast platform is. Also, remember that if you subscribe to the podcast, you'll get a bonus entry into my 2,000 follower giveaway. Also, it only takes a quick minute, but it would mean the world to me if you could leave an honest rating and review on iTunes or Stitcher. It does a ton to help the podcast grow, gain legitimacy, and really helps me continue to get more fantastic guests week after week. Plus, you never know when I'll be randomly scanning through the reviews and shooting out some cool swag. So I am officially heading out to Salt Lake City in mid-July for a Total Archery Challenge and the Cam Hanes Mountain Ops Trail Run. I've been training my butt off for this, and I'm still nervous that I'm going to make a complete fool of myself, so we'll see what happens. But I know a few of you have already reached out to let me know that you'll be up there. If you haven't already, hit me up on social or at info@livingcountryinthecity.com. Let me know you'll be out there. I'd love a chance to meet with y'all and grab a bite to eat or sling some arrows. And now, if y'all have been hearing any booming or banging in the background, that's fireworks going off. I made the mistake of waiting to record this part until the evening of 4th of July. And anyway, I hope y'all have been having a great 4th of July, and I'll talk to you again soon. But in the meantime, stay country, y'all.
Thank y'all for listening to Living Country in the City. Get show notes and check out the blog, product reviews, events, and more at livingcountryinthecity.com.
That was super weird. It was like all of a sudden, it just went off a cliff and was like, I was like, what the heck is happening?